Hi there, this is our second video submission for EDF 5705 and the Curriculum Resource Project. Just introducing ourselves yet again, I'm David.
Andrew.
And Joey.
So, we've got 3 articles to discuss this week and we've all got some additional resources to go through as well. So, let's get cracking.
What was interesting is it went on to show different ways we could assess the pupils. That was a big focus on it, was different ways of assessing. We look over here and we have a nice, what do you call it, a profile of the Jessica's achievement, which was just had stuff like life and living. So living together, she got 2. Structure and function, she got a 3. She understood that. Biodiversity, change, continue. She didn't really understand that. She got a 1. And so they have this going through all the different things, natural and processed materials, working scientifically, earth and beyond, energy and change. So pretty much the whole curriculum. And it was a nice solid way for them to say that this is what they know. There was a big focus in this article about how moving away from testing all the students at once and trying to use Vygotsky's zone of proximal development to help them in their tests. So not only what they can do, but what they could be capable of later. It is better not to plan this lesson until the end of the first lesson. Use the information about what the children know, how they responded to the first week's activities, did they understand those concepts, and the questions that they suggested for further research. I really like this because a big proponent of teaching is not to be unprepared, but this is also not making a one-size-fits-all lesson.
Yeah, you're sort of taking a step back from maybe doing all your planning, setting it all out in a rigid sort of structure. It's like you plan the first one, see how that goes, and then you can build upon it.
That's right, because what if you create a lesson and you've underestimated the class?
Yeah.
They're going to be bored with everything you do. Or, as happened to me in one of my placements, I overestimated a class's abilities and I was pitching too high. You have to be able to reel that in and change.
So how would you say, Joey, that this article will inform your future placements as far as planning is concerned?
Well, for one, it's given a bunch of ways you can discuss the topics. Like, for example, balloon rockets, weighing balloons, pop the balloons. Like, they have tons of different activities and things that can demonstrate it. And it was all about getting the students to themselves. It will really influence me on how I assess it. I think that's the biggest one because for me, science has always been a big test, whereas this is more like sit down with the kids one-on-one and talk to them and check what they know.
So perhaps it's moving away from predominantly summative assessment and moving towards a sort of a balanced approach between formative and summative assessment.
That's exactly what it is, and it's kind of just really, the big focus was not just focusing on what they can do at the moment, but what they could possibly do later. So a lot of chances to extend somebody's learning, giving them the support they need, scaffolding, to be able to move on.
Mm-hmm. So the article I've focused mostly on this week was the Fleer and Jane article, The Nature of Technology and Technological Knowledge. So the central idea that I took out of this article is essentially it challenges conventional views on how people perhaps perceive technology. It's very, very wide-reaching and crosses a lot of different disciplines and sort of different strata of technology, I suppose. I learned personally a lot from it because I had not considered the difference or the distinction between information technology, materials technology, systems technology. How I think it is contextualised for us as teachers is I think it provides a lot of interesting information that we can use as sort of groundwork for our own lessons about technology. It sort of encourages that sort of open learning, that inquiry-based learning that we perhaps act as a springboard through which children or students can then go out and learn themselves. So something I found incredibly interesting about this article is, I mentioned the central idea is challenging our notions of what we perceive technology to be, and there's a survey they conducted in this article with students listing a whole bunch of I suppose, outputs of technology and asking them to rank which ones they think resulted from technology. The interesting one for me is most students, and I would say most adults as well, would identify a computer as a very obvious output of technology. But they also had a poodle in there as well, which through me initially, but it turns out that poodles are a result of selective breeding, which is in of itself a technological process. So something that I had never considered to be an output of technology, it turns out it actually is. So I found that quite fascinating. Many modern day inventions have been attributed to Western cultures. He's argued that cultural chauvinism runs deep and Eurocentrism has a very long history. It runs into an example about Thomas Edison and how the patent for the electric lamp actually was originally written by an African American man. So something I had no idea about.
Yeah, I didn't know that either, and I was actually quite shocked.
Considering the focus that we have in our Australian curriculum on our own history with Indigenous people, and particularly our role in Asia, which is a massive part of later years humanities curriculum, I think stuff like this is endlessly fascinating and important for us to sort of impart on our students. So I think this idea of technology and culture provides us a chance to teach children that technology is far-reaching, and it's pervasive, and it's not always obvious, like the poodle example.
I'm going to link this back to DeVroe in the fact that unlike the other articles that we've read, those two have been focused on increasing our content knowledge as opposed to how we should teach that content, which the other articles were focusing on. For this one, what we were just talking about was that I would keep these articles, the DeVroe and the Martin, in my resource folder simply because if I have to write a lesson, they are both amazing for answering almost all the questions you would have about that particular subject. I don't have a favorite quote per se, but I have a section, the constructive and destructive forces.
So I think the quote that we discussed in class this week, the Martin quote about how teachers do not need extensive scientific knowledge in order to teach, but where we discussed the fact that they do need at least a rudimentary understanding of the topics that they introduce. Would you say, Joey, that this article provides a good primer, a good introduction to Earth and space science?
Absolutely. I mean, to be honest, for most of the lessons you'd be doing in primary, you might not need anything else.
Yes. Yeah, they're nicely summarised and they get the information across.
Yeah.
So I read this article while reading the Auswell science curriculum. So there's obviously a subheading in our curriculum for Earth and space sciences. And from every year from foundation all the way through to year 6, there is something in that Martin article that we're able to use.
For my resource, I actually, as I was reading some of the articles, I remembered a science book I used when I was teaching English in Korea called Science by the Grade. The reason I chose this resource is because it is graded books from 1 to 8, and they go through all the sciences, and each chapter has maybe 3 or 4 pages of writing followed by activities that they can do. And it's just meant to reinforce. And what's great is the next time they do it, it's basically set up almost exactly the same chapters, same information, but it's extended a bit. There's more writing about it, there's more keywords, and the expected activities are a bit more difficult. So I found it was a really good resource to bring to a classroom.
My resource will be the Australian.gov.au website, in particular with a focus on the Australian Indigenous Tools and Technology. In relation to the Fleer and Jane article, The Nature of Technology and the Technological Knowledge. So they go in the website, there's a lot of information about Aboriginal tools, weapons, boomerangs, and in regards to teaching this in primary school, you could get kids to make their own boomerangs or, weave their own nets.
So it sounds like that would be perfect for a sort of cross-curriculum unit of work where you're combining the science of creating these tools with the humanities,
yes,
the history. There's obviously Indigenous Australians, a massive part of the curriculum. So it sounds like you could kill 2 birds with one stone. So the resource I chose this week is a video about cargo cults in relation to the Fleer and Jane article. Again, talking about technology and culture. Just as a very quick summary, a cargo cult, it's a bunch of tribes in Papua New Guinea who actually worship planes as deities from paradise because the Port Moresby the city of Port Moresby established a port where planes come in, and the culture of the indigenous Papua New Guineans had never seen planes before. So they actually have created their own runways in order to try and lure the planes down, who they believe that the white man has essentially stolen the planes and they're getting all the cargo. This video, it's nice and short, so it would work well in a primary school setting, and I think it could be useful again for a multidisciplinary unit about science and about humanities. So talking about science and technology contextualised in culture and looking again at the impact that culture has on technology. So we hope you enjoyed our discussion, and please tune in next week.